What's going on, guys? Sean Nalawani, SeanNal.com. And in this video today, I'm going to be sharing with you the very simple truth about what the best muscle building diet is to help you gain muscle effectively from week to week while keeping body fat gains to a minimum. This is something that most lifters way overcomplicate, especially beginners. And with all the different information out there that's available nowadays, all the articles and videos telling you, what the best muscle building foods are, or the exact macronutrient ratio you need to follow is, pre-workout meals, post-workout meals, bedtime nutrition, intra-workout nutrition, all these different factors. With all that stuff, a big percentage of lifters are under the impression that proper muscle building nutrition is this hugely complex thing that needs to be carefully monitored at every hour of the day. Now, the truth is that for the average lifter, the things you actually need to focus on are pretty simple and straightforward, and it's actually just a couple very basic factors that are gonna make up the huge majority of your results and that will get you close to your genetic potential on their own. If you're a more advanced lifter who's already close to their genetic potential, and let's say you're trying to squeeze out every possible ounce of growth, you've been at this for 5+ years and bodybuilding is your passion, or you're competing, then paying more attention to those smaller details would become necessary. But for most of you who are watching this, who just want to build a great physique, but bodybuilding and fitness isn't your whole life and you're not trying to go to the extreme with it, it's just not necessary to micromanage all of the small details, and it's probably actually counterproductive because it will create unnecessary stress and it will decrease the chances that you'll actually stick to your bodybuilding program long term. So what is the best bulking diet for the average trainee? Now, there are a couple of other factors that I'll mention here in a second, but to put it very simply, the best muscle building diet is going to be a reasonably balanced, minimally processed whole food diet that allows you to meet your total calorie needs for the day. That is the vast majority of it. As long as you're getting a good balanced mix of minimally processed protein, carb, and fat sources, and you're hitting your overall daily calorie target, you're probably doing 90% plus of what you need to do in order to optimize your muscle gains. Now, obviously, calories aren't the only thing that matters because it's also important that you get enough protein for muscle recovery and growth, and it's also important that you get enough fat in order to keep your testosterone levels in the right range. But if you're eating a fairly standard diet where your main meals are based on some sort of protein and carb combination, which is something that most people just naturally do anyway, even if they don't work out, if you're doing that and you're including a healthy fat source or two during the day and you're not going out of your way to eat low fat, then your protein and fat needs will usually just get hit automatically without you even trying, because you don't need a huge amount of either of them in the first place to begin with. And because you're eating in a calorie surplus, your overall daily food take is going to be higher, and so your margin for error in terms of hitting those macro minimums is going to be a lot smaller. 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight will likely be enough to maximize your gains, which is only 135 grams for a 170-pound person. And then about 25% of your total calories coming from fat would be a good guideline there. And that's pretty easy to hit as well. So if your diet is reasonably balanced and you're eating in a surplus, it's pretty unlikely that you'll undershoot those numbers. Now, if you're on a type of diet that is lower protein or lower fat by default, like a vegan diet, for example, or if you just don't eat much protein or fat to begin with, then yeah, you will want to double check to make sure that you're getting enough of those. But for most people, it really won't be an issue, and you'll likely just get enough without even having to really try. And then on top of that, as long as you're not intentionally restricting a particular macronutrient or going really high on one macro for some reason, again, as long as things are decently balanced throughout the day, your exact macro breakdown is not going to be that big of a deal when you're bulking. For example, it doesn't actually matter if a higher percentage of your surplus comes from carbs or fat, because your body naturally will adapt to the type of fuel that you're getting, and you won't gain more or less body fat either way. So you can go a bit higher carb and a bit lower fat, or vice versa. Or if you went a bit higher protein and a bit lower carb, or a bit higher fat and a bit lower protein. Again, as long as you're meeting the minimums for each of those macronutrients, interchanging them a bit is probably not going to make a noticeable difference to your results. And so tracking exact macros just becomes unnecessary. And this is something that I really want to move more toward with my advice. And that is to encourage people to gravitate more toward a more intuitive style of eating. Some tracking is obviously necessary if you're serious about your results, but I'd much rather see people just focus on total calories and then roughly estimate their macros, because precise macro tracking just isn't going to be sustainable for most people, and it's probably not necessary either, unless fitness is your life and you compete or something, along those sort of lines. When you're in a focus cutting phase, then it's a bit different because you're in a deficit, and so you're going to have fewer calories to work with, and so you do need to track things a bit more closely to make sure that you're getting enough of each macronutrient just for health reasons. But in a surplus, it's usually not going to be a big issue. Now, at the same time, I'm not encouraging people to be lazy here either, because building, an impressive standout physique does take work and it does take consistency. And so don't overlook the fact that calories do matter. If you're trying to maximize your muscle gains and you're not getting enough total calories, then you're not going to build muscle at your full potential, or you might not even build any real noticeable muscle at all. And if you go too high on calories, then you're going to gain an excessive amount of body fat. Some people, especially those with good genetics, can eat more on the fly and just estimate things by eating a bit more than normal and still get great results that way. But if you're a beginner and you're serious about this for the long term, then I would recommend that you have a reasonable idea of what your calorie needs are for muscle growth and how closely you're hitting them, and then going through a period of temporary nutritional tracking just to learn the ropes, because that's going to teach you, which foods contain what and how that fits into the day as a whole, as well as what your calorie needs are for maintenance and for muscle growth and for fat loss. It will just serve you really well moving forward. And then as you become more experienced, and especially if you tend to eat a lot of the same things during most days like I do, then often you can just fall into a rhythm with it and you might not need to track things that closely. And you'll just get naturally better at it over time as well. I have gone over a few different ways to calculate your daily calorie needs for muscle growth in previous videos. And so if you haven't seen those, or if you're unsure, then you can just check the description box and I'll lay everything out for you step by step there. You obviously do want to double check that you're getting enough total protein and enough total fat to be sure. But as long as you clearly are, then it really shouldn't be something that you have to specifically track, or at least not that you have to track very closely. I'd also say to ideally split your meals up into at least 3 separate protein feedings. 2 will still be effective, like with something like intermittent fasting, but I would say ideally 3. And then from there, just structure your eating plan in whatever way is most enjoyable and most sustainable for you. There are no must-eat bodybuilding foods. There are no special pre or post-workout combinations that are going to make a huge difference to your results. There's no magical macronutrient ratio. And as long as you're getting those 2 to 3 protein feedings, then meal frequency and meal timing likely isn't going to make a noticeable impact on your gains. Remember that fitness is not a quick fix. This is an ongoing way of life. And so you need to find a way of eating that you can reasonably see yourself following over the long term and that you can genuinely enjoy. If every day is a struggle diet-wise, then you're definitely doing something wrong, because as long as you take some time to plan things out, there's no reason why you can't fully enjoy your meals or why you should be straining to meet your nutritional needs. And also remember that fitness is just one aspect of your life, and you only have so much mental energy available each day in the first place. So if you're obsessively tracking every aspect of your diet in, super detail, not only is that going to be unnecessary and stressful, but it will actually be detracting from your life as a whole by burning up mental energy that you could use on other things. It's going to decrease the chances that you'll actually stick with it, and it's going to make regular day-to-day things a lot less enjoyable, like going out to eat with friends and family, for example. Again, if you are a more advanced lifter and fully maximizing your results is important to you, then you can start fine-tuning all those little nutritional details to try and squeeze out a few percent of extra gains. But a few percent is probably exactly what you're looking at. And so for the typical trainee, especially beginners, it's much better to just stick with the basics, and the basics alone should take you right up close to your genetic potential anyway. So I hope this was helpful. If you do want to grab a fully structured plan that covers everything you need to know to maximize your gains in those initial beginning stages and up to the intermediate stage and beyond, in a practical and sustainable way, the workout plans, meal plans, supplement guides, along with one-on-one coaching, so you can just put in the work and know that you're doing everything properly with no guesswork involved, then you can download my body transformation blueprint by clicking the little icon at the top of the screen, or by heading over to btblueprint.com. The link for that is in the description box. Make sure to like the video, leave a comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. The official blog is over at seannal.com, and you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram as well if you aren't already. The links for that are also in the description box. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.